Okay, you guys want to get started?
Yeah.
Okay. So for anyone listening to this is iHearIC Radio episode 99. We're getting close. 100 is next week. For this week, though, I am still in exile from KRUI, so we're recording this at my house. Welcome to the four people sitting in front of me. And the four people in front of me are INVocE, which is a smashed together words of Iowa new vocal ensemble, correct?
Correct.
All right, good.
Got it.
Good. Let me just test the levels here. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves one by one?
Yeah, I'm Norah Wolf.
I'm Conor Broaders.
Tristan Miedema.
And I'm Anika Kildegard.
Awesome. Welcome to all of you. Tell me, when did INVocE begin?
Take it away, Conor.
Yeah, that's a question for you.
Well, it sort of started to come about toward the end of fall of last year. I was just thinking that there is a new music institute at the University of Iowa, but there isn't a whole lot of vocal involvement aside from my colleague on my left, Anika Kildegard. But there's no like choral or like specifically vocal chamber-ish stuff that goes on there really, except for like one-off projects.
Right.
So about January of last year, I began talking with Norah on my right about the possibility of putting together a vocal ensemble to do new music and that sort of stuff. And so that then came to being. We talked to a bunch of friends, Tristan, Anika, a couple other members, Mason Montoro, Shelby Tippling, Jack Simpson. And so last spring, we became sort of a formal ensemble of 7 voices. And then this past fall, we added Meredith Diebold, who is a friend of Mason's, as our 8th to sort of round it out into a more...
An octet.
Octet.
Yeah. And INVocE performed at the previous iHearIC concert at the Mill. You were a full 8-piece that night. Can you give me a recap of what you performed that night?
Yeah, so we, this semester, we've been centering our efforts around a piece by Luciano Berio called Cries of London. And the sort of gist of the piece is that it's multiple movements where there's this returning sort of chorus. These are the cries of London. Some go up street, some go down. So then in each of the movements, he's like imagining the kinds of things that you would hear if you were walking down the streets of London. And that's, you know, not really a London of today, but a London of like 100 years ago. So people are especially selling stuff. In fact, one of the movements is all about like money, 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 money. So we did a few movements from that piece. And then to complement that, we did a couple of Pauline Oliveros' sonic meditations. We were looking for something that, you know, I think Cries of London has a lightness to it, but a lot of the time new music, it's a reputation that it's all seriousness, you know. So we, you know, chose a word that maybe I shouldn't say on radio.
No, you can say it. We're not on the radio.
Should we
so
all
it's
say it
totally
together?
fine.
Team, ready, set, go.
Schlong. Beautiful. Yeah.
It's very serious, just as I said.
I think I actually played that on the previous episode of the radio show, which was also not live on the radio. So just
It's a theme with you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, let me wrap it up. There was one more piece by Kate Soper, the first movement of Songs for Nobody.
Right. Did you choose the word schlong, or was that in the piece?
We chose the word schlong.
Okay. Actually, yeah. Tell me like how that piece is written, because I don't know anything about it.
All of Pauline Oliveros' sonic meditations are just text instructions. So this one, I believe, said something along the lines of, it's titled one word. So you choose a word and you say it as slowly as possible and explore all the sounds within the word, and then you speed up, and that's the whole piece.
Got it. So did you decide on schlong beforehand, or was it in the moment?
It was beforehand. We experimented with a few different words Originally, we were thinking about butts, and Anika especially really liked butts.
Yeah.
I think that was fun just because, I don't know, who doesn't like butts? That's,
Yeah.
but the truth is, the word there's not a ton for singers to do with the word butts, right? Because B, if you hold it out, is really just M. So we're not going to say butts. That is not great. And then is it not exactly a long sound, right? So that doesn't work either. And then also isn't ideal. So nothing about that word lends itself to, I think, the character of this piece. But schlong, all of those sounds are long. Oh yeah.
We had toyed with the idea of having the audience choose the word.
Oh yeah.
But after talking about it more, we're like, we want to go bold. This is our first like real performance. We want to just like pick a word, show up, and schlong it up. So
Yeah. While you guys were performing, somebody leaned over to me and was just like, "Hey, what is this?" Which I thought was a great question.
Excellent.
And I'm going to pose that to you. What is this? It's pretty open-ended.
I think there's a beauty to improv music that I wasn't really aware of because I do a lot of musical theater, art song, that kind of canon, and I don't do a lot of new music. Not as much as Anika, of course, or Norah, for that matter. But I think the beauty of having a live improv performance is the ability to play off each other and really communicate with the other performers as you're performing the piece. Oftentimes throughout the piece, like somebody would start making a new sound or start saying a new sound in a different way, and then somebody else would kind of copy that and mimic it in their own unique way. So there's this kind of live play that we don't often get as performers because we usually have a written instructions in front of us in terms of like notes on a staff.
Right.
But getting to kind of stray away from that and explore this live performance element where you can really play off each other and change what you're going to do. You can have a plan in your head, but you can really change and adapt to the current exact moment while you're performing the piece. And I think that was really cool about the piece.
Yeah, I'm all about that. Making decisions as part of the performance is great. Yeah. And Anika, you've done a lot of that, right?
I wouldn't call myself an improviser.
Okay.
Really. No. I had done some meditations and things, but my first big experience was I participated in the intermedia open house last spring. A friend of mine who's a dancer invited me to join her and another dancer, and it was a long form improvisation. So I think we went for all 3 hours of the open house. Which, I came in being like,
And this was like an early improvisation experience for you.
Yeah, you
just jumped
I
in
maybe would
the
say
full
like
3 hours.
kind of like my first, maybe my very first one, and it's not even that long ago that happened. But I can't tell you how much of a drug it was. It really just I felt so elevated after the 3 hours were over. It was incredible.
3 hours is a long time. Even
I went and watched. It was pretty stunning.
Yeah. Did you watch the full 3 hours?
Oh no. No. I saw snippets.
Yeah. Do either of you have a lot of improvisation experience?
No, I don't do as much of sort of the avant-garde end of new music. My experience with it is mainly I've worked with Dr. Nally. My undergrad was at Northwestern, and Dr. Nally, who's also the conductor for The Crossing in Philadelphia, was the director there. And even though I was never part of the new music ensemble per se, he made a point of making sure that like newer stuff like Ted Hearn, Gabriel Jackson, and some of those composers are part of it. So I'm more of the more standard choral new music, but still with some of that avant-garde stuff. But improvisation hasn't been something I've really done much, if any, of.
Yeah, I'm also fairly new to improvisation. My first big experience was with the visiting artist Jax DeLuca. She put together an improvisatory performance with a bunch of dancers and a bunch of musicians from the School of Music and some of the intermedia students at the art college.
School. Sure.
Yeah. So, I have sort of the same experience as Anika, where that it was it's so freeing to be able to live fully in the moment and be very in control of your own like musical self.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really powerful feeling.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's sort of an exploration of yourself and sound in general. It's finding what can I fill this space with. Yeah. Was it intimidating at all? Did you know you were going to be performing for 3 hours, Anika, before you got into that?
Yeah, I mean, she presented it to me as being that, so
okay.
There was no wool over my eyes or anything like that.
Good. Yeah, you weren't tricked into it.
Show up the day of, oh, hi, we're going for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Was that intimidating? Or how did you feel at the beginning versus the end?
I don't know how to say strongly enough. Yes, it was terrifying. I absolutely walked in feeling like I'm about to take up a lot of sonic room in this building. In the art building is this kind of Guggenheim-like, circular space where no matter what story you're on, you can hear the things that are happening in the little kind of, what's that area called? The like entry area?
I want to say foyer, but it's
atrium.
Too big for that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that I, just like grappling with how, I don't know how much room that meant for me, was scary. But I mean, as soon as I started, like the idea of flow, right? And I feel like people talk about this kind of stuff, and the older I get, I'm recognizing more things like this are true, that they're like, oh, you get into the flow. And I'm like, that's bullshit. That's like new avant-garde, like whatever, like kind of frou-frou-y almost. And then it starts to happen and you're like, oh my God, people actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's weird to talk about, but when you actually experience it, it's like, oh, it is a real sort of phenomenon.
Well, maybe you don't want this to happen, but like I just want to like turn it back to you for 1 second, because I feel like I've seen you improvise a bunch of times with Wombat in particular, and just so I feel I mean, maybe you don't want to like be talking yourself.
No,
I'd be very interested.
You can throw stuff
in
back
hearing
at me
you
as much
say
as
some
you want.
stuff about that. I mean, let me say one memory is like, and this is maybe not every time, but a number of the last few times that I had seen you take out your box of reeds and then like you smash the box, and I don't know. This is okay. I'm just gonna say it. I definitely have like cried watching you do that before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is like. It's kind of silly, and then suddenly it becomes like you're like walking this little fine line between something that's absurd and something that's like so real. So anyway, I'd like to hear you talk about that.
Sure, yeah. And this is like totally casual. Like we can talk about whatever you guys want.
Okay, all right.
Feel free to ask me questions if you want to. Wow, you cried, really? That's intense to me. Have you guys seen me play with Wombat at all? Okay. That's fine. I'm not offended. I was just asking for clarity. Yeah. So as Carlos, Will, and I performed more and more frequently while Carlos was living here, I started to get more physical with our performances, and I was like involving my body more and more as opposed to just making sound. And I would just have stuff in my sax case. And it's like, well, it's here. I can incorporate it somehow. So I just make like a pile of stuff in front of me at the beginning of each performance. And like when the mood strikes, I can just go. Well, what you were saying about the flow and like the weird, the weird sort of hippie way that people talk about the sort of mental space you get into when you're performing. I definitely just like become a different person, I feel like, when I'm in that mode. I shut my eyes a lot when I improvise.
Yeah. So
I'm just like hearing the people I'm playing with and just like in my own brain. And specifically the smashing of stuff, I guess I was also hurting myself when I was doing that, which may have helped to make you cry because there's like physical pain involved. And I was feeling like the more sort of energy I put into just the physical action of like smashing something on the ground, the more of an impact that would have on people witnessing it, which it sounds like it worked. Like I said earlier, it feels weird to talk about this stuff, but when you actually experience it, you understand
Right.
how it feels. Are there any? Did I talk about that well enough?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay.
And definitely I mean, I think it. Oh, I mean, again, speaking from a knowledge base that is as thin as a fingernail. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that.
It's a good metaphor.
I do feel you're talking about bringing things in your sax case, and when I did this improv with my dancer friend, I brought a number of books, poetry and prose, that I was like, okay, well, I'm, oh my God, I just improvise text and say something profound on the spot. No
That's
way,
scary
that's
to
never
me.
gonna happen,
Yeah.
So I placed books all around the space, and I had a few other, I had some bottles and I don't know, a wooden spoon or some. I had a pill bottle full of dried beans. Just sort of okay, well, if I just bring myself some toys, maybe I could play. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, I'm glad that we made the choice to, I mean, Pauline Oliveros is definitely giving us some parameters within which we can work. But, the choice to go ahead with schlong, which we had, practiced and sort of played a little bit with what could come out of that word. I think that helped that performance to be more substantial, because it wasn't just random, right? Anyway. Yeah.
Had you rehearsed with the word schlong already?
Once,
okay. So you knew a little bit of the possibilities of schlong. And have you performed that piece? Actually, let's talk more about performance in general. You mentioned earlier that this performance at the Mill was one of your first performances. Is that what you said?
Yes, this was sort of our first performance, I'll say, as an octet, sort of as we sort of originally envisioned the ensemble last year. We did do one performance last year as part of the two performances last year as part of the one was the lunch series concert with the University of Iowa, and then the other one was
the percussion ensemble recital.
Yeah, and so we did. A friend of ours did an arrangement. Interesting story. We started learning Vienna Tang's Hymn of Axiom as a sort of something we all decided to start working on. And then we found out about 2 weeks later that a friend of Anika's had arranged it for two marimbas and a vocal ensemble, and had reached out to Anika about doing that together, not realizing that there was now a vocal group that was doing that song.
Already rehearsing it.
Yeah, and so it ended up working out where we performed it with them on the lunch series and at the percussion recital.
Nice.
And in addition to that, we also did another piece, Let My Love Be Heard, that another one of our members, Mason Montoro, really wanted to do. And so that was the stuff we did last year. Am I missing anything?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so this was your first performance as an octet. Do you have any other performances lined up?
No, not at this point.
Well, let's make more happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll put you guys on the next season. We can talk about dates later. Do you have, you may not have stuff lined up already, but do you have sort of goals in mind? I know you guys are all sort of at different places academically, so I don't know what sort of long-term plans you're making. But
yeah, one thing that we're trying to focus more on is working with the Center for New Music and working with some of the student composers there. So now the trio that we performed the Kate Soper piece with, right, Anika, Shelby, and I, are working with Christine Burke on a new piece. And then I believe we are planning to perform a piece by Ramin, and I do not know his last name.
Rochandel.
Yes. At some point next semester. So that is sort of the direction that we're trying to move.
Yeah, commissioning new stuff from
Definitely.
people that you know. Good. What other... Do you guys get together regularly to rehearse stuff, or is it just kind of on the fly?
Our rehearsals have been, at least this semester, and I think last semester too, Monday nights. We're also involved in various different activities that, like, finding just one night a week was a challenge, but we found Mondays.
Nice.
So this semester we rehearsed every Monday for about an hour and a half. Hour and a half, is that right? But yeah, that was pretty much it, and kind of, you know, various things as needed. And I think the beauty of this ensemble too, like what Norah and Shelby and Anika did with their little trio piece, was that they can work on that outside or find a different time, or we can break up into smaller groups from the 8 to perform different repertoire that's not just for an octet, but maybe there's a duo, maybe there's a trio. So that allows for smaller groups of people to plan other times that not all 8 people have to be in attendance at.
Right.
But this semester it was just the Monday nights.
Mm-hmm. That's been kind of a running theme when I talk to people on this show, is like just how difficult it is to line schedules up with even 2 or 3 people. You managed to get Monday night with 8 people, which is pretty significant. That's a good accomplishment. Do you mind if I go into your pasts? Okay.
Go for it.
Okay.
Delve deep.
This is sort of how
Oh my gosh.
spark conversations with people. I'll start with Anika, since I feel like I know you the best out of the group. When did you start singing? Or when did you start doing anything with music?
When I was in the womb.
Okay, cool. And do you remember that?
Yes, it was very warm.
Probably more comfortable than you'll ever be outside of the womb.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I grew up in a very musical family. My mom plays the piano and my dad plays the banjo.
Nice.
So that's, grew up singing a lot of banjo music.
Cool.
Yeah. So I feel like there was never any question in my mind that I was going to be a music major when I got to college, and so I did that, fulfilled my destiny.
Good.
Yeah.
And where are you from? Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where in Minnesota?
Morris.
What's the population of Morris?
Wow. I think it's something like 5,177.
Okay, so fairly small. Is that? Are you just making up a number?
Yes, definitely.
I've never been to Morris, so I wasn't sure what kind of town it is.
Oh my gosh. Well,
And where did you go to school?
I stayed in Morris and went to the University of Minnesota Morris, which is a liberal arts school. And I think there were a lot of things about going to school out there. I mean, lots of opportunities, only undergraduates in their student body, so you're not competing with any grad students. And I don't know, school is kind of what you make it, right? Like, in some ways, it doesn't matter where you are; it just matters what you do.
Yeah, that's generally true. I also went to a small liberal arts college. Liberal arts. I didn't realize that was so hard for me to say. But I also stayed in my hometown, so that's interesting. Okay. We have that in common.
Yeah.
And you're doing a master's now, right?
That's right.
Cool. What are your plans after that?
Well, I would really love to move east. I think I have my sights set on like Philly or New York City. But my partner is finishing his PhD at the University of Minnesota and applying for professor jobs. And the truth is that could take us anywhere, even in the world. So,
yeah. I started talking about your past, and then we very quickly fast forwarded to the present. So you grew up singing a lot of banjo music, is what you said. What kind of banjo music? Like bluegrass kind of stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And was this just like in the house, music. Or did you perform with your dad?
Oh, no, just in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have an early recollection of like one of the first times you performed in public?
Well, So they put me in piano lessons when I was 5 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember, the feeling of like walking out of the stage. I think there was definitely a time in like middle school when I felt stage fright. But before then, not really at all. And then since then, I just don't, I understand it, but it doesn't really happen to me very much. So
That's good.
yeah. So I just,
You just had a
pranced
brief
up on
window
stage
where
and
you were uncomfortable.
that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
weren't we all like pretty uncomfortable when we were middle schoolers? That's not a great
Yeah,
time
I'd say
of
so.
life.
Horrible.
Stage fright, no matter where you are or what you're doing.
Right. The world's a stage.
The world is a stage,
My life is musical.
and men and women merely players.
All right. Let's go into Tristan's past a little bit. When did you first become a singer or get involved with music in any capacity?
I don't know when I started singing. I think my parents would say that I like sang around the house as a child. But I just like started in with typical school choir, that kind of thing, and stuck with it. Had my peak in middle school show choir. It's been downhill from there. But I like, you can kind of quickly, even in middle school or at a younger age, find out like who's excelling at this music thing and who loves it and who doesn't and who's just there
Right.
for the credit or who's there because they have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I quickly found myself like excelling and like getting solos and, taking extra lessons and doing that sort of thing. And really like in high school kind of explored a lot of different types of music, ensemble singing. I was in shows, I was in multiple choirs, I did soloing, and really like feeling out what I liked about music. And the funny thing is I also, like you both went to undergrad in my hometown. I'm from Pella, Iowa, which is about 40 minutes southeast of Des Moines, little Dutch town.
Yeah.
Population's about 12,000.
Thank you.
But I like never thought I would go to Central, and I did, and I had a great time, like a liberal arts school as well. Really what you make it. And I had a blast there. But I went to Central and I majored in elementary education because I had everybody in my life seeing me as the music kid. Like I was the music guy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in town, everybody in school knew me as that. Like, and I think I hated following what everybody wanted me to do. I'm very much like a rule breaker, and I hate being like cookie cutter, and I didn't want to just do what everyone told me to do. Oh, everyone's like, go do music, pursue music. And I resisted that really strongly, even though I think I wanted to do that. I was like, no, I can't do that because that's what everyone wants me to do.
Right. You got to take control of your
Yeah,
life.
so I was like, this is me taking control, being an elementary ed major, taking all these horrible, actually hard elementary ed classes. And then I was like, okay, screw this. And decided to be music education. And I actually ended up going back to my high school and working as an assistant show choir director to the group I was in high school. I played the piano for the group and directed the show band and that kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, music ed's great. And like, I'm passionate about this, but like, God, do I want to be trapped in a high school the rest of my life? Like like sophomore year of college, I had this moment where I like pictured my future, small town Iowa, working at some high school, teaching some shitty show choir. And I'm like, okay, what's the peak of that career? What's my end goal of that? Mm-hmm. To be at a 4A school and have a great show choir. And like, that's that. And I like felt dissatisfied with that. And I was like, there's so much more to music that I want. And though I still love music education, and I, went to the IMEA, Iowa Music Educators Association conference, like 2 years after I was no longer a music ed major, because it excites me. So I ended up just being a music major. At Central we didn't have like voice emphasis or whatever. Like it was just kind of you're a music major, kind of do as you wish with your main instrument. Mm-hmm. So I just was like, I'm just going to major in voice. And it wasn't even till like August of my senior year that I saw the group Contus from the Twin Cities, a vocal ensemble, perform at Central. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. And, there were little sessions with them, and they were all talking about their past and whatever, and they all like had gotten a master's degree in music, or one of them had a master's degree in English. And I was like, well, I gotta go do that then. If I want to do that, if I want to be singing in this way, like I need to go do that. So really, so late in the game, I was suddenly like, okay, I need to apply to grad school, and I like got audition materials ready and figured that all out, and literally 2 years ago, I didn't think I'd be in grad school. I thought I would be at a high school teaching for real
Right.
in small town Iowa. So I think my journey with singing and music has brought me to a lot of different places, and I'm still kind of exploring that. And to answer your next question of what do I plan to do after this, I really don't know. I toss around this as a joke often, but like going to work on a cruise ship as a singer would be really exciting, and I like love the independence of being able to make a decision like that. Like I don't have a partner or anything. I don't have anyone tying me down. My family is really important to me there in Iowa, but like they would love to come cruise on a ship that I'm singing on.
Yeah.
So I want to sing. On a cruise ship, I would love to be in shows. I think like I see myself moving to either the Twin Cities or Chicago in the next 5 years, probably. I don't know about New York yet. Everyone thinks I'm a New York boy. I'm bound for New York. And I've been to New York a few times and it sounds great, but we'll see. If I end up there, fine. But if not, that's okay.
Well, everyone wants you to go there. So.
Yeah, I know. So I clearly I have to resist and I have to go to the Twin Cities instead.
Yeah.
But really I see myself kind of, because my music career has been a hodgepodge of multiple things. Like I record show choir solos on the side as a little side gig. Like I always am constantly I have my fingers in a lot of different pots. So I see my career as that as well, like singing in shows or singing in ensembles, singing solo, being on a cruise ship, really hitting lots of different things. And I don't know, that's kind of where my interests lie.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be, you're already doing a lot of different things. It's
Yeah.
good to be willing to do a lot of different stuff, because it's not, hey there. All right.
I was listening to
Weasel's joining in.
Jonathan Van Ness has a podcast, and I was just listening to a podcast today. He had Diane Guerrero, maybe she's she was in the Orange is the New Black, the Netflix show, and she's in Jane the Virgin. But she was talking about how she grew up at a performing arts high school, was a singer, and then got into acting. But her acting professor was like, "Oh my gosh, you sing? Well, sing for us." And she was like, "Oh no, I don't do that anymore." And he goes, "No, you're an artist. You can do any kind of art that makes you happy, and you can pursue that." And she's like, that just really changed my whole life and the way I see art and the way I see my acting. And I think this is just a podcast I listened to within the last week. And I think I can take that into my own art of yes, I can sing. And in grad school, I've learned that there are so many ways to sing. You don't just have to be an opera singer, and you don't just have to be on Broadway now to make it as a singer,
right? Or
to pursue music and do singing.
You don't even have to make it. Yeah.
No, you don't even have to make it. It's, it's the things like this, like what we're doing here in this little group, that round out your musical experience and fulfill that desire.
Yeah. I'm going to take you back one more time like I did with Anika.
Go for it.
Do you have a very early memory of a performance?
I swear I have long-term memory loss. Everyone's always like, I can name you my elementary teachers. I couldn't even name you a single elementary teacher. Do
you remember the name of the school?
Lincoln.
There you go. Okay.
So we have that, but I swear to God, I think my childhood memory was wiped clean. My earliest performance memories, I would say our middle school. I remember wearing these blue kind of sequiny, sheer, blue-green, duo color, the way you turned,
nice.
vests. And I remember singing, I don't even know the song, but I remember trioing with two of my close friends, on the front of the stage as middle schoolers, in pants that were 12 sizes too big. And I remember terrified. I think I still get this sense of terror when I walk on stage. And there's, different coping mechanisms we all have before we walk on stage or whatever. But I think it's equal parts terror, equal parts thrill. And I can think back to being in middle school and walking on the show choir stage or whatever, having that equal parts terror, equal parts thrill, because I think there's this fear of unknown in a performance setting. There's something can always go wrong. In a middle school concert once, we had people dropping flies because they were passing out from the hot lights. 7 people.
Whoa.
During the performance, we didn't stop. People just were passing out from
after
they're not locking their knees or whatever. And I've performed in choral concerts before, having sight read the music that's being performed.
Yeah.
And I think there's just this exciting. There's this excitement to a live performance, and I think that is equally parts terrifying and equally parts thrilling. Equal parts. That's what I meant. but I still get the same feeling when I walk on stage. Like, it hasn't relieved at all. I mean, I guess a little bit, but I think I see it more as a thrill and more as an excitement of like, look at this opportunity I have. Like, people are going to look at me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an attention whore.
Good.
Yeah, like I'm going to steal everyone's attention for a minute, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Well, that makes it, that would make you a better artist, really,
Yeah.
if you want the attention. I will say, I wouldn't want it to like deaden the feelings of excitement you get, but I have found that the more time I've spent improvising, the less fear I feel in general about going on a stage. Because if you go on a stage and you have like nothing prepared at all and you get through a performance just having no plan, it's like, oh, I guess I can really just like do whatever.
What's stopping me now?
I don't really have to be afraid of this ever again. But I wouldn't want that to be like tied to your feeling of excitement and drag that away too. Yeah. It sounds like they're very much connected for you so far.
For sure.
Yeah. You mentioned the cruise ship thing. That is something my wife thought about too. She was also a vocal major in undergrad. The one person that I know that did the cruise ship thing, I think I know more than one, but the person I've talked to about it, my friend Asher Brown, he went on a cruise ship as sort of a singer-songwriter thing. So he was playing guitar and singing. And he said, like, the good part is that he wrote a lot of new music while he was on the ship. The bad part, he was in a relationship when he got on the cruise ship and sort of stayed in the relationship through, but then they broke up right when he got back. So that didn't work out. So if you're going to go on a cruise ship, you may not want to start something before you get on.
Stay single.
Yeah.
I'm having no troubles with that right now. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, you sounded like you feel good about not being tied down. So
for sure.
You're good with that? Okay.
No worries.
And also, internet access is a little bit difficult to come by. So if that's an issue for you, it's really expensive.
I need a social media cleanse. So
okay, so that could be good for you too. All right, let's keep going. Tell me about your past.
All right, I'm from Chicago originally. Population about 3 million.
Thank you. That's like the whole state that we're in right now is 3 million.
I think the Chicago metro area is about 10 million, not 100 million.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm originally from Chicago. I'm sort of the city boy of this group, I guess.
please.
Tough crowd. But yeah, so I started out, music was just something I did for fun. I took piano lessons for a few years when I was very young. My teacher sort of fired me because I didn't practice.
Oh, that's too bad.
I believe the way it actually went down is that she pretty much just went, I'm like, I think he might want to try something else for a bit. But so then I ended up finding choir, sang in that for a bit, and then my grandparents actually got me helped me find the Chicago Children's Choir, which I was in for 10 years, and it's sort of what kept me going with music throughout, because I didn't really do music in school per se. It was mainly something I did outside of it, which I think helped keep it sort of something I wanted to do, something I didn't have to do for, like what Tristan was saying, like I wasn't around the people who just wanted to do it for credit. I was with people who wanted to do it because they wanted to do it. And so I did that for a long time, and then I had no intentions of going into music as a career, like at all, until my senior year of high school. I don't remember what happened, but I suddenly said, hey, what if I applied to a school for music? That being said, I actually applied to every school I applied to except one I applied to as an engineering student. And the one school I did apply to for music, Northwestern in Evanston. Don't ask me to tell you the population of Evanston.
That's okay. I'll look it up.
I actually still applied as both an engineering and a music student because they have a program there. And so I threw together application materials, and by the grace of God, I got in. And so ended up doing 2 degrees, one in mechanical engineering, one in vocal performance.
Interesting.
And so
is there a lot of crossover?
There's more mental crossover than you might think.
Yeah.
And Northwestern is a very sort of, everyone there does 2 things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, why are you doing? It's like, no, like there were a bunch of like theater literature is not that different, but like theater, music people, like everyone in engineering also had like a hobby, like German and engineering, that sort of stuff. But while I was there, I was doing a lot of music, did a lot more solo stuff, hadn't really done solo stuff before. So that was exciting to figure that out on the fly when most other people had.
Right.
And then as I was going through that, I still enjoyed engineering, but I found myself seeing the music as sort of the release, even though I was working just as like mentally hard on the music stuff to like make it good, like keep improving.
Mm-hmm.
The engineering thing sort of started to take a back seat in terms of like what I wanted to do. And so by my last year, I'm like, okay, I can either keep going with engineering or I can actually just like actually pursue music. And so ended up taking a year off between undergrad and graduate school and said, okay, we're going to work an office job.
So you finished a degree in both?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I ended up taking a year off to see like, what do I want here?
Mm-hmm.
In that year, I was performing with a men's ensemble and a volunteer choir that friends of mine, the volunteer ensemble, a friend of mine was the conductor. The men's ensemble was a bunch of actually graduate students from Northwestern
mm-hmm.
who had put together a men's group. Not all of them from Northwestern, but did that and realized that I wanted to keep doing it full time. Mm-hmm. Working in office sort of drained me.
Right.
And so that's when I applied for a bunch of grad schools and thankfully found a very good teacher here at Iowa. Wow. University of Iowa, who was recommended by a lot of people at Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
And so ended up here, found all these lovely people I am now sitting with, thank goodness. And have just been sort of still charging through the path, trying to just make my way in this world of singing literally anything and everything that will come my way, like Tristan said.
Yeah, good. This is going to be weird, but in that year off, what was your job?
Worked in an insurance company selling veterinary malpractice insurance.
Got it. Okay. Wow. So you were still singing. The music was still happening. The engineering was sort of not a part of your life at that time.
Yeah, so I thought about doing engineering, but I realized if you go into engineering, it's sort of like all or nothing, especially with a lot of the positions they want to fill. So I figured let's find something that's like still going to pay bills and such while still allowing me to like save up money. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, so I was still performing in like mainly like ensemble stuff. I wasn't doing my solo stuff in that year, but yeah, so I was still ensemble performing, but that still was not enough for me because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Yeah. No recreational engineering. Yeah.
Is
I'm just
there
saying, I
such
think
a
it was clear like what you were still interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the year off was more just a cleanse to make sure that's what I wanted to do and not just like feeling like I have to keep going because I'm going.
Right.
So it made sure the momentum was genuine, not just momentum I built up.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you have an early memory of a performance?
Like Tristan, I don't have many very specific memories.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the name of your elementary school?
St. Barnabas. The first one that is... Yeah, I don't have many distinct memories, but generally it's similar where it was just something I always enjoyed doing. Where as I've gotten actually older, I didn't go through the middle school stage fright thing. Like I slowly got more stage fright as I was in undergrad. And it hasn't gotten worse, but it's sort of just like stagnated at like, okay, we deal with this.
Right.
But back then it was more just something I really enjoyed doing. So I was in the first choir I was in was like the church choir at my elementary school because it was a Catholic school.
Right.
And I just remember like I volunteered for that choir. My old babysitter was one of the people involved with just wrangling children for that choir. And so I just have memories of like singing there like one service every like 2 months because they don't trust children to like actually learn a ton of music apparently.
Yeah.
Fair. But actually I think the first very distinct memory I have that got me to sort of solo singing was actually I had the opportunity to sing in a chorus for Chicago Lyric Opera through the choir I was in because that was where they pulled the children's choir for stuff.
Nice.
And so I just remember running around on that stage and going, this is fun. Can I do this more?
Yeah.
So that's sort of where I came from was just I've always enjoyed it. I've always had fun doing it despite the fear that is always the build up and the angst that you put yourself through to prepare, but it's always worth it for the payoff is sort of what I remember.
That's good. Are you Catholic?
Not anymore.
Okay. That's the way it is with a lot of people. So I just wanted to check. You go to Catholic school and that sort of becomes a part of your past.
I went to a public high school.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been practicing Catholic since 8th grade.
Okay. It's fairly early. You made that decision.
Sorry, Mom.
Is she going to listen to this?
Maybe.
Does she know that you're not a practicing Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay.
No one in the family except her is a practicing Catholic at this point.
That's probably a bummer for her.
I don't think she cares that much.
All right, that's good. Okay, let's go to Norah's past. Tell me as far back as you can remember.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town called Sydney, Iowa, which is just about as close to Kansas as you can get.
I do have one clarifying question.
Yes.
How small?
How small? I think the population is right around 2,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the smallest so far, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my graduating class was 40, but
wow.
that's only because 2 schools around us closed in my last 2 years.
So it would have been like 15.
In 6th grade, I was the last name on every roster, and I was number 16. So we grew a bit.
Yeah. And your last name is Wolf. So.
Yes. So, yeah, and then there I sang,
probably.
Sang.
I haven't heard the rest of the sentence yet.
Yes, I sang just as much as I could in every choir possible, and I played in band and played as many instruments as I could get my hands on. And then...
Let's go down the list.
Yeah, so I started on trumpet, and then I was asked to switch to tuba because we didn't have a tuba for the concert band.
Mm-hmm.
And then I played flute on the side because I loved it. And then I played trombone for the marching band and for the jazz band. And then just anything else for fun.
Yeah.
But so I actually auditioned for my first round of auditions was on trumpet for college. And I got into a couple schools I couldn't afford to go to. And so I was like, well, that's not an option. And I went to Iowa Western Community College, where I switched to flute because I was like, well, I've always liked this a little bit more. So I did 2 years as a flute major and then transferred to Iowa as a composition major.
Okay. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, with voice as my instrument. And just found out that there was more voice there than I had expected. And
you mean in yourself?
Yeah. And that sort of performing was more where my passion was leading me. So then switched to vocal performance finally after my first semester and a half.
Okay, so you've had a journey.
It's been a wild one, but it's been a lot of fun.
I didn't want to interrupt, but so you started in trumpet in your band. Was this middle school, right?
This was 5th grade when we started, yeah.
And you're in a very small school. I want to know how many people are in the band.
Our band was actually pretty big. It was about half of the people from every class.
Okay.
So I couldn't give you a great estimate, but... And then in middle school, it was smaller because we had just lost a really good band director, and so a bunch of people quit. But so then it slowly got bigger and bigger to the point where I think it's now like 50 or 60 players.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty significant for a school of...
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Of just a few hundred, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you still play flute?
I don't really, no. It sort of fell to the wayside, and then... who has the time, to keep up a bunch of extra
flute is
things.
Hard.
It's really hard.
I've never gotten good at flute at all.
I never quite got good.
Well, you did 2 years.
At a community college.
Well, sure. How was community college?
It was great. It was nice to have some time that was sort of in between the pressure of high school and college at a 4-year institution.
Mm-hmm.
So there was more room for me to play there and explore other things. And then being so close to Omaha, it was nice because I got to go see like the Opera Omaha and the Under the Radar Festival every summer, which was what really got me started in new music.
Great. Have you performed in the Under the Radar Festival?
I have not, no.
I've been rejected several times, so I was just curious.
This year, I eyed that application for so long, and I was like, maybe later.
Yeah, someday I aspire to perform in Omaha.
Bucket list.
Yeah. Okay, so you came to Iowa as a composition major.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still write at all?
I do, yeah. I had to take a couple semester break from actually doing composition lessons, but I just got back into them. And so I'm working on a few things now.
Cool. Are you going to write for your ensemble?
Maybe.
Is there any reason you wouldn't?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's just, I think mostly I'm trying to work on things that I'm not comfortable writing for at this point, because I know I could write for a voice pretty easily. So I want to kind of use this time to learn about other things and then eventually kind of bring all the knowledge that I can back to center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I did too when I was going to school for composition. It was like, I know the saxophone too well. I need to explore other instruments. Okay, I didn't ask you yet. Tell me like a very early performance experience that you remember.
Yeah. I think the earliest solo performance that I can remember is when I sang Scarborough Fair at the 7th grade solo small ensemble. And I got a 1.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, she did.
And that's all I can remember about it.
Hey, you got a 1. Since it came up a few times, do you have any sort of stage fright issues?
A little, definitely. What I've done in these last few years is I've done my best to convince myself that terrified feeling is excitement. So instead of thinking, this feeling in my stomach is anxiety, I'm like, it's butterflies. I'm so excited to go perform.
Yeah.
And it's actually worked surprisingly well. So at this point, that feeling does get me a little pumped. I'm like, let's go, man.
Cool. You put a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
And it worked. I can't really trick myself like that in my experience. All right. Well, we have been talking for about 53 minutes, which I think is decent, right? Decent interview length. We should do some plug stuff for the end of the program. Do you guys have any events coming up or anything you want people to check out online? Anything like that? I have one backup for you guys if you can't think of any.
To be determined.
Okay. Well,
Well, is this like for INVocE you're talking about?
sure, but anything individually is fine too.
Well, I'm singing the Barbara Hermit songs on our recital on Thursday night at 7.
That's this Thursday night?
I think it's at 7 or maybe 7:30.
Is that with Tony?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 7:30. That's a very common time.
7:30 then we'll say.
Voxman performances. That'll be Thursday, the 5th this week.
You got it.
Cool. What about you guys? Any end of the semester performances coming up?
I mean, we're doing Mozart's Great Mass on Wednesday with the Iowa choirs and orchestras, but
Well, that's a big performance.
Oh,
At
it is.
Hampshire.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Have you guys performed in Hampshire before? I haven't.
Once.
Had the opportunity. Yeah. How is it in there?
Big.
Yeah.
No, my first year, spring semester, we did Pirates of Penzance over at Hampshire. So that was really cool. And it made CCPA feel very tiny.
Oh, yeah. It's a much smaller building, yes. Well, I know you guys have a Facebook page for INVocE. That was my backup plug.
They have a Facebook page.
Yeah. If you're listening, you should like their Facebook page. I'll link it in all of the podcast stuff when I post that. Anika is also in Ligament, which I want to plug because I like it.
Excellent.
Yes.
And I hear, she didn't say this, but Will told me, Norah, that you're writing a piece for us.
I am actually.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So there's a little cross contamination.
Working on getting that all engraved as we speak.
Nice. Sounds like you're pretty far along then.
Yeah.
Wow. How many weeks?
Second trimester.
Oh, a while.
Ligament is Anika's duo with Will Yeager, the bassist, who you all know and love. Do you guys have anything coming up, Ligament? I'm trying to book you on an iHearIC show next semester, but
Yeah, actually, I
heard from Will
just like an hour ago booked us a show up in Minnesota, and so we'll be doing that in January. We just did the dance gala.
right.
We had a lot of stuff this semester, but
Yeah.
it has wound down.
Yeah, we are. It's December 1st. It's time to wind down.
Hooray!
All right, I'm going to plug a couple things. I didn't
Thanks,
make any
Tristan.
notes, so it's just off the top of my head. So help me out if I freak out. Next Sunday, December 8th, will be the 100th episode of iHearIC Radio. I will actually be back on the radio, barring any catastrophes. And I booked a longer studio time, so this will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Sunday morning, December 8th. iHearIC Radio 100. It's a big event. I'm excited. I invited every previous guest of the show to come back. I assume not everyone will be there, but I'm also extending the invitation to you four. So next Sunday morning, if you'd like, come to KRUI. It's 89.7 FM on the radio if you're in Iowa City. You can also stream it live at krui.fm online, or I will upload the recording later, as I always do. And then after that, on December 13th, will be the final iHearIC concert of the year. It'll be at Trumpet Blossom. It'll be at 9 p.m., and the performances will be Thieves, Anastasia Schultz. Am I saying her last name right? Do you guys know?
I think it's Schultze,
Schultze. Okay.
perhaps.
I keep saying her name on the radio, and I never have asked her how to say her last name. All right, so Thieves, Anastasia, Warship, and... oh boy, I should know this, right? I hope whoever it is isn't listening to this.
I have to.
Oh, of course, it's Alyssa Gersony and Gabby Vanek performing together. Of course, how could I forget? So that'll be December 13th, next Friday at Trumpet Blossom, 9 p.m. It's free as usual. Oh yeah, I'm not on the radio, so there's a bunch of stuff I can say here in my house that I'm not allowed to say on the airwaves. It's a free show. You don't have to pay any money. You get in for free. Everybody that performs at an iHearIC show gets paid a little bit of money. And if you would like to contribute to the fund that they get paid out of, there's a Patreon set up for iHearIC, patreon.com/iHearIC. If you give at least $1 a month, which is practically nothing, you get a video, a full-length video of each performance, usually a day or two after it happens. I occasionally record bonus podcasts as well. So there's some incentives for you if you want to contribute. I think that's really all I need to talk about. Go to the website, iHearIC.com. You can find Facebook and social media and all the podcast platforms, all that stuff. You know how to do it. Looking forward to episode 100. Again, you guys are welcome to join me for that. I'm also going to give out a phone number, so you can also call in if you're interested. Do you guys have any closing remarks before we shut down?
Just thank you for all the work you do.
Hey, thank you guys thank you for coming to my house, which was not the original plan. I appreciate you making the trip out here to Coralville. I know it's quite a distance. Maybe sometime next semester we'll do this again, but in the actual studio.
I do want to know, what's the population of Coralville?
Oh, geez. I think it's like 25,000, maybe a little less. I think the entire like Iowa City area is like 100,000. And Iowa City itself is like 75. But then that would...
great.
I don't know. Maybe Coralville's less than that. I don't know. It's something like 20,000-ish. Well, thank you for joining me again. That was INVocE. Everybody check them out on Facebook. Check them out next time they perform. I'll hopefully have them on the radio show again sometime and on the concert series. Next time we do this, we should try to get all 8 of you.
Definitely.
Of course.
All right. Thanks again. Have a good drive back to Iowa City. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Goodbye.